Should the child suffer?
But it's not a child and it's
Right.
not
Not a
suffering.
child yet.
Why isn't it a
It's not
child?
suffering. It's not a child yet and it's not
Why is it
suffering.
not a child
And I
yet?
think an abortion is also a consequence for her decision. It is also a very difficult decision for her to make. Bunch of cells with no feelings and no wants
Yes.
in the world,
Yes.
who has the potential to ruin someone's life or multiple people's life.
Yes.
Okay, is something that can be not killed but aborted.
If you don't let a girl who wants to have an abortion, there's a higher chance you will develop depression from that than simply having an abortion. Besides, wait, an abortion.
Any statistics to back that up?
First of all, I would rather my mom aborting me if she wished to in the beginning, if she would have conceived me in early life, like in her earlier years. If she would have not wished to conceive me and she would decide to abort me, I would rather that than her having to have me.
Right. So in other words, your argument is not about viability.
No, it is because
It
I
isn't,
stated.
because I've just demonstrated that
Okay, I stated
you would still carry out abortion even if we could preserve the viability of an embryo. Would you say that there's any point at which abortion becomes wrong? I wanted to talk about what is happening in America today. In America today, it is quite likely that the Supreme Court is going to return the issue of abortion back to the federal states. In other words, it will be decided by each state whether to allow abortion in that state or not. It will no longer be a federal issue. And I want to point out the hysteria and fanaticism of the pro-murder lobby, the pro-abortion lobby. How those pro-abortionists launched arson attacks against counselling services for pregnant women run by the Catholic Church. How those fanatics and extremists barged their way into Catholic churches and disrupted the Catholic Mass.
Shameful!
How those bigots and how those vile, repugnant militants graffitied churches saying that if abortions are not safe, neither are you, threatening property and life because of their fanatical devotion to the murder of children. And what did we see by the liberal media? What did we see by the virtue signalling hypocrites that are the celebrities and the influencers of our age? Did we see them condemn any of these actions? No. But would they have condemned those actions if they had happened to a mosque after a terrorist attack? Yes, they would. So in other words, according to these bigots, according to these extremists, according to these fanatics and their sycophantic celebrity cheerleaders, it's okay to interrupt religious services. It's okay to firebomb Christian charities. It's okay to vandalize Christian places of worship. If the same thing had happened to a mosque, you would have been hearing about Islamophobia for weeks on end and the importance of suppressing Islamophobes. But yet, these Christophobic militants were able to target Catholics in the United States, target their places of worship, target their charities, and even the President of the United States could barely condemn it.
So-called Catholic.
Just like the so-called Catholic Trudeau couldn't condemn the burning of 38 Catholic churches in Canada. He said it was understandable. Imagine 38 mosques in Britain being burned. Do you ever think that a Prime Minister would come forward and say, it's wrong, but it's understandable?
We wouldn't hear the end of it.
We would not hear the end of Islamophobia. But that is acceptable in Canada and the United States of America. Furthermore, and I call you not to get in bed with that kind of hypocrisy, but call out both the people that did it and the people that support it. Furthermore, the Catholic Church has failed to excommunicate President Biden
Shameful.
and the Speaker of the Senate, Nancy Pelosi. The Catholic Church says that because I am not a Roman Catholic, I can't receive the Eucharist in a Catholic church.
Scandal.
But they are allowing a fake Catholic, Biden and Nancy Pelosi,
Heretic.
who are anathemas to the Catholic Church, to receive the Eucharist in the Mass.
Absolute scandal.
How is it when I believe in the Catholic teaching on abortion more than Biden, I am refused, but a Catholic is not refused, even though he supports abortion and the Catholic canon law forbids him to do so? And so I want to encourage Christians of every denomination to go to Catholic Mass and to receive the communion. Because if they're going to let a child killer and the cheerleader to the murder of children receive communion, they can't stop you who are pro-life but non-Catholic. Ladies and gentlemen, let us be clear. Abortion is genocide.
Amen.
More children have died because of abortion than died in the gulags of Stalin or the concentration camps of Adolf Hitler. More human beings have died because of the fanaticism and the death cult of liberal progressive society
So cool.
than died under the Marxists of Russia and the Nazis of Germany.
Let the children come.
It is time to end this genocide.
Now.
Any questions about this topic?
Any questions on abortion?
Come forward.
Come
Did
forward.
you hear, Bob, that the Archbishop of San Francisco actually said Nancy Pelosi should be refuse communion in all of the churches in his diocese? We're waiting to hear what so-called Pope Francis comes back and does to him. But at least he said, because Nancy Pelosi and those others you mentioned are de facto excommunicants.
Yes.
So yeah, just...
So I'll reply to that. The question is, did I hear that Bishop Salvatore excommunicated Nancy Pelosi?
All right.
And the answer is yes. But why did it take him 10 years to do it?
10 years. 10 years.
He should have done it. Hay fever.
Drink the water, Bob. Drink water.
He should have done it on day one. Those who support abortion
Yeah.
are excommunicated from the Christian faith.
Amen.
You cannot be a Christian
Yeah.
and support any form of abortion.
Amen.
Abortion is murder.
Clearly.
Infanticide.
There is no justification for the murder of the most innocent and the most vulnerable in our society. And we have industrialized the murder of millions of children. Next question.
Next question on that.
Question on abortion. Or on how it relates to so-called Islamophobia.
Alright. Any questions on abortion? Any questions on abortion? Going once.
Going
Twice.
Any questions on abortion?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen,
Alright.
I'd like to go on to my next topic.
Okay.
I am.
Wait. Bob,
Yeah.
Good question.
where does the word of God condemn abortion?
So, what does the Bible say about abortion? The Bible states that life begins in the womb. When Mary went to Elizabeth, her cousin, whilst they were both pregnant, Elizabeth said, "Why should it be that the mother of my Lord has come to visit me? For when I heard your voice, the baby inside of me leapt within my womb." When the angel announced the conception of the Lord Jesus Christ, he said that that which is in you shall be a holy thing, shall be the Son of God, because he shall be conceived by the power of the Holy Spirit. It says in Scripture that I knew you before you were born, and I knitted you together in your mother's womb. The Scriptures state that life begins at conception.
Amen.
And life is sanctified by the fact that God is the creator of life. There is no justification for the wholesale industrial slaughter of children in the Western world
None whatsoever.
that has led to the deaths of 60 million children across America, Canada, the UK, France and Germany. This annihilation of the unborn must be made illegal.
Amen.
Those that support it are like the Germans who supported the Holocaust of the Jews. They knew it was happening, they supported it, they applauded it. And if you support abortion, you are like a German seeing the death trains taking the Jews to their deaths and applauding them as they go.
That's a little bit extreme. Are you a fascist?
Next question.
Are you normal?
The answer is yes. Next question.
But only when you're in your mental hospital.
Further questions on abortion. Going once.
Good or bad?
Bad.
Very bad.
Very bad.
Extremely bad.
Next question.
Saves the mother's
When
life.
are you going home?
Never does.
He's got a question.
Mother's life.
He's got a question.
I asked you.
Come here. Come here. Let's do a debate.
No, not today. I just got a question.
All right, question. Question.
You don't have to answer. You got some music.
Go on, ask a question.
What does it say in the Bible about animals?
That's not on abortion.
What are you on about?
He's asking a question that's not on abortion. Do we have a question on
You've got a
abortion?
thing in your head.
Do we have a
Oh, it's
question on
about
abortion?
abortion. Oh.
There we go. Any questions on abortion?
He's aborting the speech.
Any questions on abortion? Abort. Any questions on abortion, ladies and gentlemen?
If it saves the mother's life, then what do you do?
So the question is, can we have abortions if they save the mother's life? It's a good question. It's a good question. Christians have the concept of what's called double jeopardy. The idea that if your intention is not to abort a child, but your intention is to save the mother's life, but as an accident of the process of saving a mother's life, an abortion occurs That can be allowed in extreme circumstances. But no, one second, but no abortion for a Christian can be allowed if the desire, the intention is to take the life of the child. Go on, Steve.
So if the intention is to save the life of the mother,
Yes.
and there's genuine belief,
Yeah.
and there's genuine belief that if she proceeds, she will die.
Yes.
If the clear consequence will be the death of the child or embryo,
Yes.
whatever,
Yes.
is that not allowed?
So, there's an example that is used within those who support the idea of a pro-life position. It's the idea of an embryonic, of a uteristic cyst, on an ovary. If the operation to remove an ovary to prevent a cyst from rupturing inside the woman results in the death of the child, tragic as it is, Christians would permit it. But no action with the deliberate intent of killing the child on purpose could be permitted.
Inevitable consequence of saving the mother, it's okay.
If it's an inevitable consequence, if it's an accident of an operation to save the mother's life.
Inevitable consequence.
Yes.
That's not abortion. Then it's not abortion.
Yeah, okay.
It's not an abortion.
Next question, is every sperm sacred?
Can I ask another question?
Let her. Yeah, go on.
Discussing
Yeah, go on.
Women's
Go on.
reproductive
Go on.
rights.
Yes,
You
what's
have
the question?
why are men?
We can't talk about black rights either.
No,
Or
it's
disabled
a,
rights,
it's
or
about
women's
women's
rights.
reproductive
So you
rights.
can only discuss something if you want.
They're talking. What's your question?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go on.
What about a 16-year-old girl who accidentally got pregnant and suddenly all of her life goes to trash because she can't have an abortion?
Say again.
What about a 16-year-old girl who got pregnant and now because she can't have an abortion, all of her life got dumped in the trash?
Right. So the question is. Well, actually, we got it recorded. So, in answer to your question, sister. Yes. Anyway. So, in answer to your question, I believe that we are letting women down by putting them in a position where lots of them think that abortion is the only solution to the situation that they face. I think that if you argue for a pro-life position as I do, it's incumbent that you also argue for proper support for women who find themselves with unwanted pregnancy, and that means real investment in those women, including counselling, availability to adoption services, counselling again, financial support, and to change the attitudes of any culture that would seek to shame or villainize them because they became pregnant.
Okay, but do you understand? First of all, being pregnant for itself can ruin someone's life in general,
Yeah, of
because
course.
it's really hard to be in school while you're pregnant. Not mention while you're in the hospital, so you lose school, and the girl is 16 years old, while the embryo inside her body is not even alive yet. It doesn't have an heartbeat. A heartbeat.
A heartbeat doesn't define life.
Okay.
Is an amoeba alive?
A what?
Is an amoeba alive?
Regardless of that.
No, answer my question. I answered yours. Is an amoeba alive?
Yes.
Does an amoeba have a heartbeat?
No.
So heartbeats don't define what's alive.
So let's not define alive. What about a sperm? That can create a baby,
Yes,
just
back
like
to
an
my
embryo.
question. Is every sperm sacred?
No.
So if a sperm is not sacred, why is an embryo
Because I
sacred?
won't have a
So that
murderer.
can create life. So according to what you say, and if you justify it using the Bible or whatever, then masturbation isn't allowed as well.
So let me answer your question. Let's answer your question.
So
First,
wait.
so let me answer your
Okay,
question.
can I just say one last thing?
Yeah, go on.
So every pro-lifer, you tell me that every pro-lifer doesn't masturbate.
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
So now let me address your point. Because the point is, I agree. If you argue for a pro-life position, I'll go further. I would say that it is incumbent upon the state to hold men equally responsible for the care of any children that we ask women to have. Men, if we're going to pass a law that says abortion is illegal, we should also pass laws. We should also pass laws. James, calm down, bro. Calm down. So, ladies, So coming back to you, right? We should also pass laws that make it obligatory for men to provide for the care of the children that they help to create. It's got to be that way. Men can't get away scot-free. If they get a woman pregnant, they are held responsible. Now, coming back to your 16-year-old.
What if they're too poor?
So, you'd listen. So, in terms of the 16-year-old that you just talked about, pro-life society needs to invest in that 16-year-old to make sure that she receives a complete education, to make sure that if she can't decide to raise that child, her child can find its way to a loving family, to make sure that she is fully counselled for any emotional consequence of these decisions, and to make sure that her career does not suffer for any of these decisions. A pro-life culture means that we have to support women and hold men as much responsible for the life that they create.
Couple of stuff. First of all, some ladies, after they give birth, they can create depression. It can harm their body in multiple ways. You're taking a 16-year-old girl's body and destroy it. And a woman that dropped out of school because she was pregnant and she couldn't keep going is not the same as a man who maybe have to stay there and support the kid, but still can get to stay in school. Even if she catch up on her education later, it harms her teenage life. In general, men making decision over women's body, they do not understand the consequence of it, no matter how much you read, because you do not understand.
Can I reply?
Yes, but second of all, you did not answer my sperm question. You did not legitimize how it is that an embryo that still hasn't became a baby and can be developed into a baby, but currently it's not a baby.
I'll address them. I'll address both of those points. I'll answer those 2 points. So I'll deal with the sperm question first. Let's talk sperm, guys. Let's talk masturbation. Right? Let's be clear. Right? Never heard of it. Let's talk about sperm. I'm trying to answer the lady's question, Steve. I'm trying to answer the lady's question. Right. So no. I'm going to address those 2 points. So first point, a sperm is not an embryo.
Amen.
An unfertilized egg is not an embryo. Pro-life Christians do not believe that life begins at sperm. We believe life begins at conception.
Amen.
So therefore, it is the embryo, the fertilized egg, that is sacred. So that answers that point. Second point. You asked about the 16-year-old and the consequences. The point that the sister is making, she's trying to argue for a life without consequences. I'm sorry, but that is not the real world. In the real world, you will always face consequences. And some of those consequences are that your feelings will suffer. That is a fact of life that you are going to endure whether you have an abortion or not.
Amen.
Arguments and appeals to emotionalism are invalid. And furthermore, if you're trying to argue for a consequence life where you never have to face depression, how many other things should we apply that logic to? How many other things shall we try to save people from suffering depression from because of the choices that they make? This is clearly a bad way to organize your life.
Okay, so first of all, regarding the sperm, even a fertilized egg is still technically a bunch of cells.
It's alive.
Scientifically, I'm talking scientifically.
I agree, it's still alive.
Sperm is still technically alive if we count that the same thing. And wait, okay? Scientifically, it's still a bunch of cells that are only gonna probably to develop to be a baby.
Yes.
Okay? Now, girls do face the consequences after they get pregnant, because even an abortion is not such an easy thing for a girl to do.
I know. Lots of them suffer depression because they have an abortion.
But
why aren't you trying to preserve them from that kind of depression as well?
Because if a girl wants to have if a girl wants to have an abortion, the chance that you not letting her have an abortion is a bigger chance that she will develop depression over having an abortion. If you don't let a girl who wants to have an abortion, there is a higher chance she will develop depression from that than simply having an abortion. Besides, an abortion.
Any statistics to back that up?
Wait. Logically, okay? I'm talking logic, okay?
That was an appeal to an emotion.
Okay, wait. Now, it's not that easy to have an abortion also because it takes money and it's painful sometimes, okay? And I'm saying it because girls do face the consequences. Girls do face the consequences, and in general, if a girl is having, if a girl does decide to have sex and then she gets pregnant, then obviously she has to face the consequences, but that consequence can be an abortion. You stopping the consequences will be easier on a 16 years old girl or a 15 years old girl. So in general, you're making their life harder, even though they're just kids. Kids do make mistakes, and a lot of times you make. For all, can you please tell all of the people that are shouting behind you to be a bit quieter so we can have a proper discussion?
I would love to have a proper conversation,
Okay,
but I
reply.
can't control these people.
Okay.
So the point that I would say to you, is that there's no way of getting around consequences. What we need to be teaching people is responsibility. Now, the reality is people are always going to make mistakes. So we're sticking with this 16-year-old girl as our example. I would believe that we need to teach people to burden and to take on the responsibility of their actions. And I believe that falls just as much on men who get away scotch-free at the moment. They get away scotch-free because they get a girl pregnant. She's the one that suffers with the hard choices. She's the one that suffers with the depression and the consequences, whether she has an abortion or not, because both ways lead to depression and both ways lead to consequences. And the guys get away with it. And I think that needs to stop. I think men, if you get a girl pregnant, the state should force you in some way, within the limits defined by the woman, to care for her child. Now, you're essentially arguing that we shouldn't let people face the consequences of their actions. That is a bad way to organise society. You can't protect everyone all of the time from the consequences of their actions. What you can do is if you create a climate of responsibility and someone makes a mistake, step in to help them. We are creating an abortion culture. We're creating an abortion culture because we're trying to escape from consequence. It's a bad way to organise our culture. It's a bad way to organise society. I agree with you that a 16-year-old gets pregnant without people to back her up. She needs help. I am arguing that the best kind of help that she should receive is the one that makes sure, in a pro-life culture, that her life can continue with the baby or if she gives it up for adoption. Right? Now, you mentioned about the sperm being alive. I agree with you. A sperm cell is alive, but a sperm cell can't be a human being.
Technically it can once it fertilizes an embryo.
Exactly, and that's the difference, and that is exactly the difference. No, that is exactly. No. The moment the egg is conceived, the moment it is fertilized, it has a unique genetic code that is different from its father and its mother. That means that there is an ontological, categorical, and qualitative difference between a fertilized egg and a sperm or an unfertilized egg. They are not the same thing. Yeah, of course.
Okay, so for your consequences part, first of all, I'm not saying people shouldn't receive consequences for their action. I completely agree with consequences, but also when someone does a criminal act, they're not punishing the first act as the second and the third because they realize people sometimes make mistakes and they gotta learn.
Yeah.
And you take what you give, for some of the women, the worst possible outcome over a mistake, and it could be a 15 years old girl. Then again, I do think there should be consequences, but I think those consequences are a lot of what you said, have to be pregnant those consequences are harsher than they deserve. So I do not encourage not having consequences over your action. I think that's a horrible way to raise children. I'm saying the way you define consequences is specifically this one outcome, okay? And it's not necessarily have to be this one outcome, because a girl having to tell her parents I'm pregnant is an awful consequence on its own, because parents get mental over that.
Can I reply?
Wait, and second thing, so I want to ask, do you define a living thing as like having a unique genetic code? Because if that is, then that is the different. But in general, you state a live thing. That's why you're pro-life, because it's a live thing. Wait, and a sperm is a live thing, so you have to define a live thing.
Yeah.
Because in general, the way you say it, there is a very big difference. But you first said it doesn't have to have a, like, it's very confusing. A unique genetic code is how you define a live thing.
Can I reply to that?
Yes, please.
So, the pro-life position is not about pro-life all life. I eat meat, I eat broccoli. These things are living, but I kill them and I eat them. So being pro-life isn't just about being pro anything that is alive. Being pro-life is about preserving the sanctity of human life. A sperm is not a human life. An unfertilized egg is not a human life. A fertilized egg is a human life. Now, I want to try and move the argument forward a bit from this argument about consequences. No, let me finish. Right? So, I want to ask you, do you have any limits on abortion? Is there any point at which you would say that an abortion is wrong?
I guess, in my opinion, it depends on the month. If women can have an abortion the moment, like in the 8th month, you know, but I don't think that's medically possible in general. But moment, in my opinion, that the baby, okay, maybe he has a heartbeat. I think if it's not dangerous for the woman and she was aware of it before, then it might be like a bit premature to kill, like
to kill, yes.
Not to kill,
right.
not to kill.
You said it right, to kill.
You got to my mind. No, but you know what? When the baby has a heart, when it's like almost there, because you can give birth in the 8th month. So I think in this, there should be maybe a bit limitation on the situation in which you can have an abortion. Because if it is a danger to the woman's life, you can still have an abortion in every situation, in my opinion.
Okay.
And in general, maybe there should be a bit limits if they're like in the 8th month or something like that. But before that, if it's like 1st month, something like that, when it's still a bunch of cells that are an idea to have a baby, because just like a sperm, it's a possibility that it will develop. It's still a bunch of cells that are gonna develop, but they're still not developed into a baby, so it's still a bunch of cells. Just like a sperm is an idea that can become a baby.
Can I reply?
So in that situation, maybe. Yes.
So if I understood you correctly, and I don't want to mischaracterize you, because that's not the way you do good debates, but if I understood you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that after the heartbeat starts, you would be against abortion. Am I strawmanning you, or is that correct?
No, what I'm saying is after the part where a woman can give birth, or like you can, like the baby can come out and it would be alive and it wouldn't like come out as a bunch of cells, then
so you're saying when it's viable. You're saying when it's viable.
It should be.
You're saying when it's viable outside the womb.
Yes, it should. There should be limitations, perhaps, on the abortion, but not necessarily bend it completely, because there are still situations, in my opinion.
So my question was, which you haven't answered. Here's my question. Would you say that there's any point at which abortion becomes wrong?
I wouldn't define it as wrong. I'd define it as doubtful. And
no, my question was, is there any point at which you would say abortion is wrong?
You said when it can be alive after the...
When it's viable.
When it's viable.
Okay. In under certain circumstances.
So I want to reply because if you're saying that the point is that it's viable when it becomes viable, then you agree with me we need to change the law in this country and around the world, because at this moment in time we are aborting viable babies. It is legal to abort a child even past the point that it's viable, and we've seen this because we've had children outside of the womb that are living, that are being born earlier than the point at which abortion becomes illegal. So would you agree with me right now that we should restrict abortion laws in this country even further and move the point at which you can have abortion backwards, so that it includes that point at 22 weeks when a child can be born outside of the womb?
Of abortion is? Can it be born, or do you have to take it, put it like special circumstances that like
an incubator or a life support machine?
Yeah, something like that, which is not technically still like viable, but you have to give it so much special support, so it is a bunch of stuff. You're just developing them further.
So would you by that logic, would you say, is a child still dependent on its mother outside of the womb for life support?
What do you mean?
Does a mother prevent a child from dying through supporting its life outside of the womb?
Yes, but can I clarify?
So what's the difference?
No, I feel like it didn't come across. Can I clarify my point?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm not saying life support as in like feeding it or stuff like that. I mean, in general, you need a medical way and a specific technological way to keep it alive.
Like helping it to breathe.
To create a environment similar to the womb, because it wouldn't survive outside the womb.
Do you also agree with that we can euthanize people that are on life support then? Can we kill people on life support?
If they wish to, but I'm sorry.
Does the child get to choose?
I thought you were arguing about having a fertilized egg being aborted.
Yeah. So my point is, if you're saying that it's okay to have an abortion if the child requires special assistance outside of the womb, then it logically follows. Let me finish.
Go ahead.
It logically follows that you should be okay with society deciding to euthanize adults who are on life support. And then you said, well, only if they choose to. One second. The child doesn't get a choice. There is no one speaking up for the child. And the reality is, what I find really interesting is all those people that are arguing for abortion are already alive. How do you know what the child wants at that age?
Can I say two things? First of all, I would rather my mom aborting me if she wished to in the beginning, if she would have conceived me in early life, like in her earlier years. If she would have not wished to conceive me and she would decide to abort me, I would rather that than her having to have me. That's first of all.
Yeah.
Now, second of all, I'm not talking about special life support as in the baby is already alive but it needs like help breathing or something like that. I mean, if you take the baby out but you have to develop it in the form of like similar to like the womb, because it wouldn't actually be alive outside the womb because it's not yet fully a baby. I'm not talking about life support or something like that. I'm talking about genuinely, because sometimes you create a circumstance that are similar to the womb because the baby wouldn't survive outside the womb. That is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about life support.
We assist children all the way through their lives to survive. A 1-year-old baby can't survive without the love of its mother of society.
Not about life support.
So my point is, your argument seems to fall down in two different ways. The first way it falls down is that if you're consistent to your own position, you can't object to society euthanizing people on life support, whether they choose to or not. Whether they choose to or not, because you are okay with society euthanizing viable children through abortion, even though they don't get a choice. Secondly, let's try and dig into the reasoning.
Can I say that before you go?
No. You can wait, like I've done for you. The second point. Let's come back to this idea of the clump of the cells, okay? Because it seems to me your argument is a clump of cells can't exist on its own, therefore it's okay to abort it. What is that clump of cells? Is it alive and is it human?
Okay, first of all, no, it is not human yet.
What makes a human a human? Define for me a human.
No, it is biologically a human. It doesn't have feelings and wants like a human being.
Okay.
It doesn't have a developed. Wait. You had a bunch of points. We want to answer all of them. So first of all, do you want to develop that?
Well, I was also thinking about your discussion about consequences. You kept going back to consequences, and you kept talking about how consequences are feelings getting hurt. That's true, but you kept referring to consequences as feelings getting hurt. That is not the only consequence that can happen. Okay, a mother can, first of all, it can cause death. Labor can cause death. As some cases, and also a constant reminder of for example, sexual assault or rape.
Are you aware that pregnancies on account of rape or incest equal less than 1% of all cases?
Okay, but that is also a case that you are arguing for, and you're also saying that there shouldn't be abortion for that case.
Agreed, but you're arguing for abortion just because a woman doesn't want to accept consequence.
That is not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that a consequence is not just feelings getting hurt. And I think an abortion is also a consequence. Also, you kept referring back to the fact that people make mistakes. I think people can get pregnant not only by making mistakes. People can take all the right steps and still get pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and what I'm saying, and I want to be clear.
Wait, can I
want to be clear. I want to be clear.
Yes.
I'm completely in favour. It logically follows that if I'm pro-life, I have to want the state to be pro-woman who's pregnant. It follows. I can't obviously be pro-life and then argue that women who fall into pregnancy through mistake or unwanted pregnancy for one reason or another should be abandoned by the state. If the state requires a woman to carry a life to completion, then it is incumbent upon that same state not only to help that woman in that pregnancy and afterwards, but it's also incumbent upon the state to hold the man who is equally responsible to account for his part of the action.
I see your point, but that might not help. It might still not be the help that the woman needs.
Wait, and can I add something?
Yeah.
First of all, you can say rape. A woman that gets pregnant due to rape is not the same, because why would she face the consequences? Well, you don't know who the rapist is.
But why should the child?
Because it's
Why
not
should
a
the child?
child. And wait. Yeah, I'll let you talk.
Let's come back to the idea of being human.
Multiple stuff, okay? First of all, it's not a child yet, and let me explain that to you. When I said viable kids, I mentioned that can survive in an environment that is not womb simulated or womb presented. So you talk about children that are viable because they're in the womb. So that goes against what I've said. I'm not talking about life support. I'm talking about womb or womb simulated situation, and that also contradicts your reasoning about euthanizing people who are on life support, because that is what I'm talking about. That is in the womb. It's not the same.
Are you aware that there's now artificial wombs which we've grown an embryo of a lamb to being an actual lamb? Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
Right. Therefore, if we are going from your logic about viability, if, say, we develop this technology to the degree that any child can be preserved in a fake womb, an artificial womb, would you agree, because of that new technology, to make all abortion illegal?
No.
Right, so in other words, your argument is not about viability.
No, it is, because
It isn't,
I stated.
because I've just demonstrated that
Okay,
you
I
would
stated
still carry out abortion even if we could preserve the viability of an embryo.
I stated
So that's
viability not in a womb simulated situation, because that still means the baby completely dependent on the womb, because it's not a baby yet.
It's not the woman's womb, though, is it?
If you can take
An
an
embryo
egg and a sperm
and put it
in a place
Yes.
and make it a baby.
where it lives. Is that a bad thing?
Okay.
Is it
no,
a bad thing?
It's not
No,
bad
if
to
it
create an
has-
artificial
you-
womb.
Is it a
If
good
you
thing?
You're
take
saying there are no other humans
Is it a good
involved.
thing?
You take an egg and a sperm, you put it in a womb, that is something else.
So,
there are no humans involved.
One second.
There are
One second.
consequences to
One second.
Yeah.
One second. Because your argument, I want to come back actually to this idea of what is a human. And the reason why I want to move past the viability argument is because I think I've demonstrated that your logic isn't about viability, because in an artificial womb, which we've already demonstrated we can do this because we've done it with lambs, we could done it with sheep, you can take a fertilized egg from a woman who's got into a pregnancy she didn't want,
that is not the
and
point.
you can grow that child in an artificial womb.
Can I
So if
clarify
it
that
was,
point, 'cause you
if
didn't
one second,
understand it?
if it was just about viability, you should now be in favor of making all abortion illegal and developing that technology. But the
I
point
clarify that point?
the
Because
point
you
that I
didn't
want to come
understand
to, the point I want, yes, you can, of course, but the point I would like to move the conversation on to is the idea of what is a human. I would like you to define to me, don't be like Keir Starmer, who couldn't define what a woman is, and all these progressive transgenderists who can't define what a woman is. Tell me, what is a human being?
Okay, first of all, regarding the viability argument, what I am saying is that the moment an embryo needs a womb-like environment to survive, it's probably still a bunch of cells we need to develop to become an actual baby. So that does not count as viability for me, because that's still developing it to become an embryo and baby. it's not the same as viability of like the embryo comes out and it is a baby and you just need some sort of life support such as breathalyzing it in order for it to survive. That's first of all. It's not the way you perceived it. Second of all, regarding regarding transgenders and women, I just want to state that for a second. A woman is whoever identifies as a woman. That is the definition of a woman. And I'm stating it clearly because I got transgender friends. Okay? And whoever identifies as a woman is a woman.
And what is a human? And what
Yes.
is a human?
I don't think we should talk about the definition of a human because
Why not? This is absolutely essential to the whole argument.
Let her finish and then you can
I don't think that is the argument because you can define a human as you said, like genetics, right? A fertilized egg is a human because it has the genes of a human.
Yes.
Right? But I still don't think that matters because before the baby is born, I think the consequences of a baby being born that is unwanted is a lot worse, even if it's a human or not, whatever you define, it's still worse than it not being born, as it has no feelings and no wants, and it
let's
doesn't
define it like that.
It doesn't.
If it doesn't have a brain yet, it can't think, it can't perceive, it doesn't
But
have feelings.
I think it's still a human. Okay, a fertilized egg is biologically a human cell.
Thank you.
Okay,
Biologically.
And it's a biologically a human cell, but I
Yes.
don't think a human
Strictly
cell
biologically.
still needs to be
Not socially.
such a high priority in terms of hurting a human being that has
So-
feelings
so-
and
so-
wants.
so can I reply now?
And wants.
Yes.
Wait,
So can I
say one
reply?
thing before?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, personally,
So just bear with us, otherwise your point will get lost on the camera.
okay. We noticed.
Yeah.
First time here.
Welcome. I've come here for 6 years, and I've had, right. So you were going to make one more point, and then I'm going to reply.
Okay. Can I talk? Is that like?
Yes, it's recorded.
Okay. So, we're talking about human and what's the definition of
Yes.
human, right? So, first of all, biologically, it might be human, and I agree with that. But I think that socially accepted, like, construct, if something does not have a brain, it cannot perceive, it cannot think, it cannot feel, and it doesn't even have a heartbeat, so it's not fully even alive yet, because the definition of life is like being is having a heartbeat, or at least not being brain dead in some circumstances,
Can I reply?
which means that it does not think, does not feel, does not perceive, does not emotionally perceive anything, then I believe it's not exactly the same. It's a social construct, even if biologically is. Can I ask you a question in return for that?
Yeah, go on.
How do you define dad? Like a dad human?
So let me reply to the idea of how do we define a human being, and I want to thank you for accepting and admitting that biologically what we are talking about is a human being biologically. Now let me finish. I didn't interrupt you. Allow me to finish. Now you have all the same organs of a chimpanzee. Oh no, a chimpanzee has all the same organs that you do. But you're not a chimpanzee, and a chimpanzee is not a human being. So it isn't about the organs. That's not what makes you a human being. The idea of the argument of the heartbeat is inconsequential, and neither is consciousness. So here's to your social. Here's to your argument about social contracts in terms of defining human life. You argued it based upon feelings, emotions, and heart. Well, a human being who is having a heart transplant loses consciousness, can't feel anything, and for a certain amount of time doesn't have a heart. But you wouldn't say at that moment that they cease to be a human being. Why? Because that isn't what defines a human being. The only definition that is uniquely able to stand up to any kind of criticism is that a human being is something that is growing and that is genetically human and that has a unique genetic code from any other human being. You wanted to jump in one comment?
Bob, if my mum aborted me at 6 months, would I be alive or dead now?
You'd be dead.
I would be. That's as simple as that. As plain and simple as that. All human beings travel through a whole route from conception right through to natural death.
Yes.
And they're human from the beginning at conception to natural death. And anything that interferes with that artificially from conception means I'd be dead. So my mum, it's as simple as that.
Can you answer my question, please, first?
Sorry, I thought I had, but go on.
My
What's the
question
again?
was, how do you define that? Wait, first of all, I'll answer your example regarding a heart transplant. You know that person will go back to being alive, right? Even if it's technically metaphorically.
It's not guaranteed.
It's not guaranteed.
But there is a chance without consequences to other people.
One second, wait. There's less chance of someone having a heart transplant being alive at the end of it than a child who is fertilized in the womb. There's less chance. There is nearly 100% chance that the child inside the womb, fertilized egg, is alive up until the point that it stops being alive than a human being having a heart transplant.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, in this situation, there are no consequences to other person's continuation of life, let's say it like that. Wait, and second of all, I still want you to define dad for me, because if you say...
What am I defining, sorry?
Dad, a dad person, because if you're saying that only
person.
after having an abortion a person is dead,
Yes.
then I want you to define what is a dead person.
A dead person, a dead human being, is a human being who ceases to grow and has a genetic code that is human.
But you keep focusing on the definition of a human being.
Because
okay?
no, one second. The reason why this is absolutely important, because I'm assuming in good faith and goodwill that you would never want to kill a human being, that you would not agree with killing human beings. So what's absolutely fundamental to this question is, what is a human being? Unless you want to state that you are in favor of killing human beings.
I'm not saying I'm in favor of killing human beings. I'm saying that a bunch of cells with no feelings and no wants in the world, who has the potential to ruin someone's life or multiple people's life, okay, is something that can be not killed but aborted.
Do you agree with capital punishment?
With what? Sorry.
Do you agree with executing prisoners?
I do not.
You don't know?
I do not.
You do not. Do prisoners ruin other people's lives?
But I don't think that's the same thing.
Why not?
Because they do not ruin other people's life the moment they're in prison and do not continue to commit.
Did the child? 1 second. Did the child ruin the mother's life, or did the consensual sex between? No. Hold on. I'm using an example. You used examples. I'm using an example. Did the child ruin the woman's life, or did her consensual sex ruin her life?
Again, but that example is not right. But you
Can I speak for a second? Sure. Okay. First of all, the birth of the baby is what ruins your life. I just want to start with that. The act of sex.
That wasn't my question.
But you are referring to you pro-life in all cases.
My question is, in the example, I stuck with your 16-year-old girl example. So be fair. No. We stuck with that. I'm giving you my hypothesis, my example. In an example of consensual sex, so no rape, no force, no incest, a woman makes a choice with a man. Who ruined her life? And the pregnancy does ruin her life. Let's just say, put that into the example as well. Who ruined her life? Her choice or the fertilized egg? Who ruined her life?
Fertilized egg, in my opinion.
Who ruined
the
her
fertilized
life?
egg.
So, a fertilized egg, one second. A fertilized egg who had no choice in the woman's decision to have consensual sex is responsible for the woman having consensual sex. Do you know what that's working backwards in time? You realize that?
Maybe her decision, who caused the fertilized egg, is what started it. But the act
Should she be protected from the consequences?
No, let me finish, please.
Go on.
I'm sorry, I hate being interrupted. The consensual sex, the act itself, does not ruin her life.
Thank you.
What does not ruin her life? What it creates might, but it is not the act itself, and you have to create that.
But whose fault is that? In my example, whose fault is it?
I'd have to think we're actually.
In my example, whose fault is it?
I don't think your example is represents the.
No, actually, hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
My example represents 99% of all abortions.
Using contraception.
My example of consensual sex leading to abortion represents 99% of all abortions.
I'm just asking you to clarify your example. You didn't.
My example is that if a woman chooses to have an abortion after consensual sex, who's without contraception, who's responsible? But we agree that in this example, pregnancy would ruin her life. Who is responsible for ruining her life? The fertilized egg or the woman and the man?
Okay, so I think contraception is an important thing in that example.
But in my example, they choose not to use contraception.
Okay, I see. Now, the reason they choose not to use contraception is also an important thing.
Because they enjoy naked sex, they think it feels better.
Well, I think that is a very specific example.
Yes, we're using a very specific example. I did for her for 5 minutes on a 16-year-old girl. Now I'm asking you to be charitable and deal with my.
It is a responsibility in this case. However,
should the child suffer?
But it's not a child and it's
Right.
not
Not a child yet.
Why isn't it a
not
child?
suffering. It's not a child yet and it's not
Why is it
suffering.
not a child
And I
yet?
think an abortion is also a consequence for her decision. It is also a very difficult decision for her to make, and it is a consequence for her, I think, wrong decision.
You know, I'd rather.
Do you think we should protect people from making bad choices?
In what means?
If I make a bad choice that has consequences to my life, should the state intervene and protect me from my bad choices?
In what means?
In any means?
Not always. I don't think so.
Not always.
Yes.
And why do you give pregnancy as an exception to the rule?
I think. I'm sorry.
So it's okay. So what I'm saying is people need to face their consequences. If you make a bad choice, own it, take the responsibility for it.
Yes.
I also believe, would you like to join in the conversation?
The mother doesn't bear the responsibility, the child does.
Yes, I agree.
You make a child live with a mother who is abusive, neglectful, or doesn't want that child.
Yep.
The child bears that responsibility
Yes.
for the whole of society for
Yes.
the rest of its life.
Right.
How can you say that's okay?
I'm not saying that child abuse is okay. What I'm saying is that killing your child to protect you from the consequences of your choices is not okay.
It's not killing, it's abortion, and abortion is also a consequence.
So let's come back to, I agree, abortion is a consequence. I agree, that is true. And lots of women suffer because they have abortions.
Yes, but I think
They
that is
suffer.
a better choice
Do you
for
know
them.
the pro-life movement was created by women, is led by women, and is dominated by women?
Can I? Okay. So, and 2 seconds. Okay, so 2 things. First of all, you're saying theoretically that something that can develop into a baby is.
It's not a theory, it's a fact.
Okay, so you're saying that something that can develop into a baby is a living, a human.
Let's talk about the meaning of a child.
Okay, can I first of all finish my argument?
Yeah, go on.
So a lot of times people have like fertilized eggs outside of the womb. And then and it's a fertilized egg. And the second you put it into the womb, it doesn't work. Just like in a sex, sometimes the sperm doesn't catch egg. It's the same.
Yeah.
Okay?
I don't agree with artificial fertilization.
Why not?
Because what it does is it destroys embryos, and I'm against it.
But that's some people's only chance to get pregnant if they can.
I don't agree with it.
Okay, but I would, okay.
The thing is, there's no. Hold on one second. Let me be clear. I am against artificial fertilization because the way that artificial fertilization works is by destroying embryos. As a pro-lifer, I cannot agree with artificial insemination because it destroys human life.
I don't get how it destroys embryos. It creates embryos.
No, it doesn't. It kills. What it does is it puts in multiple embryos with the full knowledge that most of those embryos will die. It's a deliberate murder of children.
Just like in the womb, some embryos doesn't go through. Sometimes it doesn't work. But
That's fine. Miscarriages happen.
Let me go back to my point, please. Okay? Based on your definition, based on your definition, let's say an embryo was created by an outer body fertilization. An embryo was created.
Yes.
Okay? So you're claiming that even though it's outside, it's not even in the womb yet, it's still a baby. You're claiming that, right?
I'm claiming it's a human being and it's alive.
Okay. The chance that it will survive in the womb is very small.
Agreed.
Just like the chance a sperm would fertilize an egg is very small, and they both.
Also agreed.
So based on that logic, it is very logical that a sperm would also be considered a living human being because it is
No.
a chance to create
No, and then this comes back to the argument, and this is why I said, and this, are you guys all right to continue? Yeah.
Yeah, just not for a long time because we're
Fair enough. When you're ready to go, when you're ready to go, let me know and we'll start wrapping it up.
I think we need to start wrapping
Okay,
it up.
so I'll because you're ladies and I want to be a gentleman, I'll let you have the last word. So this is going to be my last word. I think fundamentally to this entire discourse, we need to have a definition of what is a human being. And no. And the problem is, what is a human being is not subjective. It is objective. A human being is something that has the genetic code of a human. That's why you're not a chimpanzee. That's why you're not a gorilla. And even though they have all the same organs that you do, you're down to every single organ, you've got the same, but you're not a chimpanzee. So it's not about the organs. It's not about consciousness, because we all spend, God willing, 8 hours unconscious every day, where we don't feel, where we don't interact, where we're not conscious. It's not about your heartbeat, because people who are having heart transplants don't have a heartbeat. They don't have a heart for a few minutes. The point is, the only definition that can stand up to scrutiny, consistent scrutiny, i.e. there's no exceptions to get round it, is to say that a human being is that which is growing, a living human being is that which is growing and has the genetic code of a human. I believe that people should not be protected from their consequences, but they should be helped in their mistakes. I'm not anti-woman, I'm pro-woman, but I'm also pro-life. But also, I think men, in this entire discourse, keep getting a free pass. Because women, whether they have the abortion or not, are still getting to deal with all the consequences, and abortion is a consequence. But men are not being held responsible for their part in creating a life. And I think that men should be held responsible for their part in getting a life. So that's my final word. And now I'm going to let you guys have a final word so that you can go.
I see what you're saying about being a human being. I think that is where we disagree, because we believe that the clump of cell that does have the human genes and everything, we don't think that it has the same rights as a human being like you and I.
Since it's only biologically counted as a human being, socially constructed, it's not exactly a human being, and it does not have the same rights, even if it is biological.
It doesn't have the same impact on the world and on other people as you and I as human beings. Also, you were talking about the man being responsible for creating a life. The thing is that I don't think it needs to be referred to as creating a life yet, because the clump of cell in the uterus is not a life yet. It doesn't have wants and feelings. We don't know it doesn't have a path in this life. It hasn't had an impact or a significant enough impact on this world. I don't think that is I agree with you that it's a human, genetically it's a human, but I think that is where we disagree, that this is not the same as a human being like you and me.
Okay, so guys, before you go, I just want to say thank you so much for having a really lovely discussion. And I just want to say, I think that for me, the one point that I thought was a bit sad that we didn't really dig into was this definition of the human being. But let's not rehash the argument, it didn't happen. But that's the question that I think all this argument rests upon. And I would like to give you a gift. I give everybody a gift who I have a debate with and a discussion with. So if you just bear with me, I'll try and find it for you. Bear with us. Do you guys? It doesn't happen daily, Speaker's Corner. It happens weekly, every Sunday, and I try to come. What?
You live here in the
I live in
area?
London, yeah. And I'd be happy to meet with you guys and talk about this more if you want to. But
We're leaving tomorrow.
I would like to give you a gift, and I would like, have a listen to it, have a look at it, and do you guys have a gospel at home? Do you guys read the New Testament or anything?
We're not a Christian.
That's fine. That's not my question. I said, do you have one? Can I give you one? Can I give you one as a gift? I don't. Are you guys living together or apart?
It's fine. We can have one. We have an Old Testament.
You live very near. So in fact, then let me do this.
We have an Old Testament at home.
You have an Old Testament at home.
Yes, I'm Jewish.
Okay.
We're both Jewish.
All right. Okay. So you've that's the New Testament. Maybe have a read of it. It is the sequel. You're absolutely right. It's part 2. It's part two of the Abrahamic faith.
Girls, could I ask you just one thing as a big favour? The lady there said she was going to do it. If you've never seen an abortion
God bless.
carried out,
Take care.
please go on YouTube.
So is that JC's camera? So guys, the whole issue of debate rests upon when does life begin? And I have not yet heard a definition by a pro-abortionist who is in favour of abortion about what makes a human being that can stand up to the exceptions, the criticisms of it. The only definition of a human being that stands up to any scrutiny is the idea of genetic code and growth. Because that's something that human beings have consistently all the way through their life, including during heart transplants. The reality is, if we agree that a fertilized egg is human, then that means we cannot justify the murder of that human being.
So can I put forward a suggestion? Might be a bit of a weird one, but I'm going to go with it. The idea that an aspect of when a human exists, it's not just in the biology, it's not just in the material, it's in the relationships that start to develop. Like
you can suggest that, yeah.
The human is it emerges as it starts to connect with the external world.
Can I reply to that immediately?
Sure.